Damn. All right, back in the virtual studio for the Wisconsin Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Report. Your host, Bill Kepke, joined by Trevor and Kelly as we interview Britta from Pheasants Forever today. So, Kelly, Trevor, thanks for joining me.
Anything for you, Bill.
Damn.
Anything for you, Bill.
Yes, there it is. Kelly, let's just start. Let's give everybody what they're really here for. What hat are you wearing?
Pheasants Forever hat. Got to represent with Britta, and we will talk more with Britta about the organization that is Pheasants Forever. But yeah, of course, Pheasants Forever hat this week, given our guest.
Bam, perfect. Trevor, what's going on right now, man? What are we? What's the policy situation right now?
It's not a huge one. The budget was approved with after 9 hours of debate, I think, on the Senate floor, and is in the hands of the governor now. So, whether or not he line item vetoes the entirety of it or just signs it is only in Tony's brain currently. But there wasn't very much talk on the floor about the stewardship initiatives. It's all just gone through with the rubber stamp from Finance Committee. And now that the budget's out of the State House, the senators and representatives are on vacation till October. So it'll be quiet for a while. Any policy conversations will be opinions over beers from here on out.
I mean, not that I'm against that, but
big sigh. No, not a statement of anything, but yeah, that's what it'll be.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, where's everybody at with Hike to Hunt? Kelly, it's been a hot minute. What's going on there? Gut Pile Gals still in the lead?
Totally crushing it in the lead, and I was trying to pull up what the results are right now, but I don't know if I remember how to get there. And here's where I'm gonna rib. We haven't ribbed Land in a while, so Land, because you never listen to this. I don't like the app, and I don't know how to find the results on the website. So, but we are crushing it, of course. I mean, I think we're like 600 miles in front of everybody, but there's no limit to your number of team members, so we just stack the deck totally, and have some ladies that just go real hardcore biking, running, paddling. So I need to add my mileage from Boundary Waters. That was gonna be my big addition. Big in that I don't think we actually got that many miles. We don't do a lot of the typical what would you call that? Circle routes, or we don't portage every day and set up camp in a different spot every day. We base camps, which reduces your miles, but I think increases your level of fun. So take that as a pro tip. And I didn't have any device on me when I was out there that was going to track my mileage. That wasn't going to run out of battery when I was out there. Plus, on top of it, you're trying to reduce your technological impact or interaction while you're out in the wilderness. So I don't know how many miles we got, but we will add them and we'll still crush it. So, and if you ever listen to this, if somebody else from some other team is out there listening to this, besides Bill's team, because I know that your team exists, anybody else, I would love to hear from these other teams looking at the leaderboard, being like, who are these Gut Pile Gals? Can we hang out? I mean, yes, let's hang out. Please get in touch with us and tell us what you think about us crushing it on the hike hunt. So that's my story. Bill, your team, I don't know, is it just you rowing in circles, or what's the deal?
Hey, you may have stacked your team, but I'm pretty sure there's still people on my team that haven't logged any miles yet. Trevor, Ryan, and I were just chipping away. Joe's chipped in as well.
You gals are absurdly ahead. I'm looking at it right now. You have 1,330 miles, and the next closest team has 600, and that is not us. I will not say how many miles we have.
I will say though, I think the next team, that public trust team, it's 4 people, And so they are crushing it. I mean, we have like half a dozen easy, more than half a dozen. So this is why there's no rules, right? Like, I don't understand, but we're into it.
If we were in a real race,
Yeah.
you would be states away from us right now. You'd be like in a different time zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good way to get outside. Good way to encourage everybody to get outside. If you haven't found the Cheers part of the Awful app, I encourage you to at least use the Cheers part. That's fun. Yeah, I did this past weekend. I know I sent Bill some pictures. I was floating down the Yahar River in Madison in a tube. And apparently I was going so slow that I kept getting that like no progress detected mentioned from that lady. And then ultimately she just cuts you off. She's like, no, you're not moving. We can't log any of this. You're done. Like your route's done. And so I got to the end of the float and it was like the app had thought I was done because I had never moved. But I had moved like a mile.
Well, there hasn't been a lot of rain. That's not your fault.
Yeah.
Not a lot of rain,
right?
Yeah.
Slow current, real slow.
Well, and then there were so many boaters, like, and they're like, and we did get asked to move out of the way. I'm like, I can't steer this tube. So sorry. You and your motor need to move around me, please. Anyway, my apologies to whoever listens to this and is like, if that was your boat, sorry, I did my best. But nobody listens to this.
The Cheers feature. That's not true. I was just looking at the numbers. Every episode's been growing. That's what it's about, getting more people informed about Wisconsin public lands and just how awful the Hiketown app is. So, hey, mission accomplished.
It is bad. I agree.
Trevor, have I randomly cheersed you yet? I need to do that, like while you're at work.
Yeah, no comment, but no, you haven't. I guess.
Oh,
I won't take that as
a.
Yeah, I won't take that as a statement about me, just a statement about how busy Bill is.
No, I just need to cheers you now. I'm
too busy sending me ridiculous.
Yeah,
things. I'm not even moving, and there's no progress detected, and he sends me a cheers.
I'm like, yeah, well, good job. It's the best. The cheers feature is the only
redeeming quality.
Exactly.
Of that freaking app.
Well, speaking about excuses as to getting outside and exploring, that's a great transition to
segue.
Right. Great segue to our guest today, Kelly. Who do we have today?
We are lucky that Miss Britta Peterson from Pheasants Forever is going to be chatting with us today, and we want to talk to Britta about Pheasants Forever as one of our top conservation non-government organizations with a footprint in the state, and also about what it means to be a Farm Bill Biologist. And Britta's got some great events lined up starting over this weekend. This is the first one over this weekend, Britta, right? And just in general, Britta's been rocking it, trying to set up more events for women in the outdoors under sort of the umbrella of the R3 movement. So Britta, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, you bet. Happy to be here.
Britta and I go back a little bit. Britta and I were in school together at good old University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point back, and we won't tell you when because we're starting to feel really old now. And I will say though, Britta was a star basketball player for UWSP. She won't admit it. She's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame this fall. So congrats to Britta.
Hey,
conservation and basketball rock star. And can keep up with Bill talking about sports medicine, even though Bill seems to think that he's got an ego on the sports medicine stuff, but whatever. So Britta, super pumped that you're joining us tonight. And yeah, how long have you worked for Pheasants Forever? I can't remember.
2.5 years.
2.5 years, and where do you work out of?
I am based in Richland Center, and I cover the southwest 9 counties.
The Farm Bill Biologists in this state, you can give some more context and background on Farm Bill Biologists, Britta, but to me, they are the workhorses of private lands conservation in the state, and they don't get enough credit for that. We have a variety of other private lands programs, but you guys are doing the lion's share, always have, and are, to me, making some of the greatest impacts out there, whether or not it's habitat work or some of these outreach type events that you're doing. But you want to talk a little bit more about your role as a Farm Bill Biologist, the partnership involved in the Farm Bill Biologist position?
Yeah, you bet. I guess I'll just maybe start with just getting a little background on our team. Just to give you a brief overview, we've got 7 Farm Bill Biologists, and then we have 2 precision agricultural specialists, 1 wetland specialist, our state representative who works with our Pheasants Forever chapters, and then our state coordinator. So there's a handful of folks there, and I can't say enough good things about our team. It's a lot of really dedicated, passionate wildlife and habitat folks. But so our Farm Bill Biologists, there's 7 of us, and we cover technically all the counties in Wisconsin. We spend more time in some counties than in others. But we are funded mostly by the Natural Resource Conservation Service, but we are also funded by the Wisconsin DNR, and then our Pheasants Forever chapters kick in. So it's kind of a joint partnership between all those entities to create the Farm Bill Biologist position.
Right on. And I think maybe let's give some context, Britta, about Farm Bill. That might be, a term that people are not familiar with. And I'm sure you give this elevator speech a lot more than me, but this is the largest conservation policy legislation in this country that does private lands conservation. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah, the Farm Bill is humongous, and so it covers a lot of different things. And our part is that, it funds a lot of different conservation programs. And so every 5 years it gets hopefully passed, and so it kind of gets changed through those renewings. But generally speaking, our role as a Farm Bill biologist is to work with private landowners and help navigate the intricacies of the Farm Bill and those programs. It can get kind of complicated for folks looking to use cost sharing and funding to do habitat work on their property. And so that's where we come in, is we try to help them reach their habitat goals with being able to provide that knowledge and expertise of those programs and the habitat for the programs.
Yeah, so folks, if you're familiar with things like Conservation Reserve Program, Wetland Reserve Easements now, formerly called Wetland Reserve Program, or WRP. If you've heard of something called EQIP.
EQIP's our big one, or I shouldn't say big one, but it's a Environmental Quality Incentives Program, which gets utilized a lot. So that's a handy one. Yeah,
and for the most part, Britta, is it fair to say you are working with agricultural producers, but to some extent recreational landowners as well? There are opportunities for cost share for people that have productive forest land and not necessarily row crop land, right?
Yeah, I would say it kind of varies a little bit, honestly, in the state as far as, who's working with who and opportunities there. I feel like here in the Driftless where I'm at, I probably work like 50% actually with just recreational land users and producers. But it does vary, but I think that, generally there's opportunities, whether it's an ag setting or a forest landowner, or there's just a lot of opportunities no matter what kind of habitat you have and what you're looking to do.
Yeah, I would say if you are a landowner of any kind in the state of Wisconsin, generally, I mean, if you'd be asking me who to reach out to for technical assistance related to habitat and cost share programs, I'm probably going to point you in the direction of a Farm Bill biologist in the state. And then they're so knowledgeable about the other programs and entities that are doing private lands conservation that they can point you in those directions too. So a huge asset. And we've had Farm Bill biologists in Wisconsin, I think pretty much since the beginning that was a concept. So we have a pretty proud legacy, I would say, here of that involvement, and Pheasants Forever having a strong showing in the private lands realm.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that we're lucky here in Wisconsin in that we kind of have a small team compared to some of the other more prairie focused states. But I think that because we're a little smaller and we actually have some tenured folks, that we're a pretty tight team. And just a lot of just really knowledgeable and passionate folks. So pretty much wherever you are in the state, you have a good Farm Bill biologist that you can turn to.
Yeah. So Britt and I were chatting a little bit this morning too. There's a variety of components to Britta's job beyond the habitat stuff and the federal paperwork that goes along with delivering Farm Bill programs. You do a ton of outreach. I mean, you said you're talking on the radio tomorrow, and you have some other presentations. And in addition, one of the reasons that Bill reached out to the Farm Bill biologist was wanting to talk about and promote the habitat walks that you have coming up. So do you want to talk about how Pheasants Forever is engaging with R3 and how that sort of has evolved into Women on the Wing and the other women-focused events that you're involved with PF?
Yeah, you bet. So our state coordinator, Marty, is actually also partially R3. So he kind of has that role for kind of the whole state. And so he kind of does a lot of different things across the entire year. He's doing some small mammal hunting and whitetail hunting as part of a Natural Resource Foundation field trip. So he's doing R3 efforts all over the place. But then a couple years ago, the ladies on our Wisconsin PF team here started doing some women caring for the land events. And so that has kind of snowballed into doing a little more outreach specifically for women's focused events. And so I think over the last several years, the Wisconsin PF team has done about 15 women caring for the land events. And so had about 350 women landowners come to these events, talking about habitat and their opportunities they have to create habitat on their property. And so we're trying to grow that a little bit. That's kind of that outreach focus and kind of targeting some of our agricultural producers, our women landowners. But we also, our team, the ladies on our team and the guys too, are definitely trying to look to broaden that out a little bit and do a little more women's focused, some hunting events or shooting, and get them kind of broaden that out a little bit. And so, but still keeping that space open for habitat and wildlife work, which we like to do. And so this is kind of where our habitat hikes kind of evolved. And so we're hosting 3 different women's habitat hikes here next week. Just hoping to get ladies out to chat and take a walk, hike with our lady biologists and start a conversation, whether it's about hunting, fishing, the habitat, the plants, insects, pollinators, whatever we're seeing out there, whatever they have questions about. We're trying to just be there to start that conversation and get it going.
So Britta, if folks are interested in coming, do they need to RSVP? Can they just show up, or how? I know I've seen some of your Facebook posts up to this point.
There is an event on Facebook, but really it's just you can show up. You don't have to RSVP. It's kind of just meant to be, if it works out for you to come, please just come join us. And that's kind of loose, but just hoping to have folks that can come from wherever and just join when they can.
Yeah. I think this is a pretty prevalent question when, folks like us, you and I, Britta, have come up with these women focused events as why women, why are we targeting women in particular? And that has certainly been part of the evolution of conversation that's happened in these women focused events in PF. So why do you think it's important, you as a female identifying biologist, as somebody who also hunts, who is a great botanist, loves getting outside to identify things in the natural environment, why is it important to you to have these women focused events?
I think I've always felt it, but I didn't recognize it, how important it is for women to have the opportunity to learn from other women. When I joined PF and we started doing some of these women caring for the land events, then the initial part of that day is to do this learning circle where everybody sits down together and you tell a little background about yourself. And it was really amazing to me how you could just watch those ladies open up and how they were so comfortable being with a group of other women. And it is, the research shows that that's the case, that women generally learn better from other women. And so knowing that that's the case, I mean, that's important for me too. Again, like I said, just seeing it, and knowing that we have that space and we can make that, everybody can feel comfortable and know they're going to learn from somebody that they feel comfortable with. And definitely too, I think, especially in my work when I'm dealing with landowners who a lot of times are producers and farmers who, a lot of times are men, but in these cases where it's our women caring for the land events, I mean, you had all these women producers. And so seeing each other, knowing that there's this whole group of other women that are interested in the same things, that they aren't them by themselves, they aren't all alone. And so I think that's really important. And even I'd say too that just as a professional, I continue to be just so thankful and amazed by the other biologists on our PF team, how smart and how dedicated and passionate they are and how knowledgeable. And so even I still absolutely all the time love learning from those ladies and feel exactly that same way.
Bill and Trevor, I'm dominating the conversation here, and I'll keep doing it until you tell me to stop. But Britta's leading the hike at, are you going to the TNC property, Spring Green, Britta, or where are you going?
Yep, the Spring Green Preserve. Yep, there's just the one parking lot there, just kind of northeast of town there, and it's a great property. So if anybody's in the Spring Green area,
give folks a teaser of what they can expect to see out there. What you're
it's Wisconsin's desert, so you'll see plant species and animal species you won't see anywhere else in the state. And I think we can maybe see some prickly pear cactus are blooming potentially. So that's really exciting. And it's a pretty good cliff. And so you get a little bit of flat and then you get a little bit of a hike and get a good view at the top. So I'm pretty pumped.
Britta's been trying to get me to go hike at Spring Green with her all this year, and we haven't worked it out yet, but yeah, sweet property. I mean, when you're coming into Spring Green, all of a sudden you see this pretty open bluff face, and you're like, wow, what is that looks so different than everything else? That's the Spring Green Preserve. So
right, absolutely, yeah, just
spot.
The sheer rock face with like I said, and it's sandy. I mean, it really is a desert, so you won't see these species anywhere else. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
Why is it a desert? Why is it so sandy? Like, what's the geology? I know that you're obviously close to the Wisconsin River. Does that have something to do with it, or is it just sandy soil?
Right. Well, I should have done my geology lesson, I guess, a little ahead of time to prep for this question, I guess. But I think that it was the glacial Lake Wisconsin that dumped a bunch of sand kind of right along those bluffs right there. I think. Someone can correct me if I'm inaccurate. But also just that sheer rock face too is open and just presents a lot of different microclimates and habitats. So you just get a lot of different species in small chunks and small areas. So that's about what I know.
Yeah. No, that follows. Is it like rolling dunes, or is it sandy ground? I mean, what does it kind of look like?
Yep, you walk in and it's actually pretty flat with a lot of sand and a little blue stem and some scrubby oaks, and then it's all open. They've been burning it. I think they burn it pretty consistently on the bluff face, and so it's fairly open, but you can see a lot of different plant species, and they generally kind of like you to stay right on the trail because it's really fragile habitat up kind of as you go up the bluff, but you can walk along the base of the bluff, and then you go actually around the backside. So you go in through kind of the oak scrubby habitat and through some of the deciduous forest. And then when you get up on top, again, you're in a different climate up at the top. So there's way different plant species just right there on the ridge line. So it's really unique.
So there are plants there that are nowhere else in the state. Obviously the cactus is one of them, right?
Right, yeah. And I think there's like 6 of the state's beetles are only found right there too. So
bigger beetles, I saw that, right, yeah.
Right. If you're a bug nerd, then this is a place for you too.
What's interesting about that spot too is, about when you go to these restored bluff ecosystems, is that we have plenty of private landowners that have bluff systems that are overrun by red cedar, right, Britta? And some other more aggressive either natives or non-natives. And so there are lots of opportunities in the drift list to be restoring, maybe not something as unique as Spring Green, but lots of opportunities to be restoring open habitats on these bluff faces, right?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing there is I guess when I talk to landowners, it's starting at kind of figuring out what you have. Because I think, since I know the habitats and know what kind of should or could be there, or, that kind of thing, when I'm driving around, I think, oh, there's a bluff prairie, or there's a remnant oak savanna, or that type of thing. But, if you don't know what you have, then then it's kind of hard to know that. But once you kind of figure out what could be there and what your habitat should be, then that's kind of where the Farm Bill Biologist comes in, is we can help get you to that place if you're a landowner. Or if you just want to know more, we can do that too.
Yeah, and I hope people that show up at your hike, Britta, the women are confident then that if they have this, if they're a landowner that has been thinking about this, or recreate on a property that has habitats like this, they can start to recognize some of those activities maybe that they could suggest or that they could do themselves. What's always interesting to me too, and what we talked about this last year, was how some of the activities and management activities that we might be suggesting in a place like a bluff place, like, getting your chainsaw out and cutting cedar, can be super intimidating for women. And
right.
So promoting that activity as a community of women and suggesting ways that you can get trained and familiar with that equipment is also something that I think could be, hopefully brought into these hikes. And if I get a chance, I'm going to show up and I'll do that, and I'll suggest these same things. And I know we have friends and partners, colleagues that are thinking right along that same track of, we want to help women landowners learn the skills of how to manage these habitats.
Yeah, and I'd say too that the hike that's going on the same time as mine up in Wapaka County, they're actually hiking at a women's landowner. Her property, she's done work through a Farm Bill program to do some restoration. She has a prairie, and so that's where they're doing their hike at. So there's enough space to do a hike, but they're hoping to kind of talk about some of the restoration efforts, the pros and cons, and the hard things and failures and the successes. So I think that's going to be a great hike as well.
So Bill, I'm going to loop you in here. I was just thinking about Britta's talking about all these cool habitats and different things that she's doing on private lands, working for an organization called Pheasants Forever, but they know themselves, they brand themselves as the habitat organization. So clearly they do things for more than just ditch chickens. How does this land with you as somebody who definitely chases ditch chickens? And I don't know if you have a Pheasants Forever membership or not, but I know you to be a person who thinks a lot about pheasants. And so how do you feel about an organization like PF doing all of this varied habitat work?
So first off, my dog chases ditch chickens, and I just follow him. You've seen him at work. He's a crackhead for birds. I love that that PF. I do have a membership, so just throwing that out there. I'm more interested in potentially what they can do to help, like the prairie chicken or the sharp-tailed grouse in Wisconsin. I'll chase the put and take birds here in some pretty cool public land spots. But I'm more thankful just for kind of what we've been talking about through this whole episode about what PF does for landowners that are interested in potentially returning their properties to what it should look like more naturally, or programs that allow a landowner to not clear cut an area or put in row crops or sell and develop their properties. So I'm interested in anything that preserves that land. So most of these properties are butting up against, or not most, but a lot of them will butt up against public property, and which is where I'm hunting, recreating. If we have more natural areas across the state between private and public, I can't think of that as a bad thing. So I guess from the average hunter standpoint, that's where I'm at. And then also, is it Dick Sizzle? Is that the bird name? That
So random. Yes.
No, it's not.
That's the bird name.
I'm reading the description of the spring green property.
Oh.
And the Dick Sizzle bird is mentioned like within the first couple sentences. So I bug Kelly for bird information any chance I get, even when she's off the clock. So what's going on with this bird, Kelly? It looks really cool. And it's got an awesome name.
they're a cool bird. And yeah, you should see them at spring green, right, Britta? I'm sure they're. I mean, we're getting now to the point where if you want to do birding, it gets a little bit more difficult. Things get really quiet once they start having fledglings. Once they start having young birds. But dick sissel is a state special concern species? I think is what it is, Britta, in Wisconsin.
Right. I think yep.
Yeah. So. I guess I'll talk a little bit about birds, but just from a bird nerd standpoint, not because that's what I do for my day job. But a dick sissel is unique in that they're one of our only songbirds, one of our only grassland songbirds especially, that actually migrates all the way to South America in the wintertime. That's a very long journey for a bird that's very small. And they are what we would call eruptive in their migratory habits on the breeding grounds, and that they move quite a bit during the breeding season depending on climate conditions. And so some years in Wisconsin, we might not actually have a ton of them in the state, and some years we might have a whole bunch of them depending on what's happening over in the prairies. So they can make these big movements during the breeding season if they don't like the climate conditions of where they first end up after their journey from South America. Although it seems to me anecdotally, and there's probably some data to support this, that we're getting them a lot more regularly in Wisconsin. I've heard them everywhere this year. I don't know, Britta, if you feel the same. I've heard them everywhere, but I feel like it's sort of been like that frequently, and that's not necessarily how it used to be. So it can be very much related to droughts in the West, and then they'll push up into our geography. They're one of our they are the last arriving grassland bird that we have. They generally show up in big numbers in June, whereas depending on the other grassland dependent songbird you're talking about, they're here anywhere between March to May, already starting to nest. But dick sissels show up kind of late. And they're a little bit of a generalist. I mean, you can find them in roadside ditches, you can find them in grass waterways in people's agricultural fields. And then you can find them in quality grasslands too. So they're kind of, to me, they look like a miniature eastern meadowlark. They have that black bib and yellow on the breast and chestnuts on the shoulders, and they have a very unique song that they throw their head way back to sing. And so it was a fun bird to see out there. That's the story of the dick sissel.
I'm gonna play the. I don't know if the three of you will be able to hear it, but I can play the sound. All right, maybe pull it up. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, they really throw their head back. Let's see if it plays. Everybody listening should be able to hear it. I don't know. I don't know if it'll play through Zoom though. Did you get to hear that, Kelly?
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of, I don't know where you got the recording from. It's a little bit obscured in that whole soundscape mix.
That's off the Cornell lab.
Is it?
Yep. They should.
That's one of their. That one is not as it's not as obvious to me in that recording which one's which, but they are called dick sissel because that's like mnemonic for how their song sounds. So they sing dick sizzle sizzle sizzle, or some iteration of that. And we were talking about, were you with us, Britta, when we were talking about with some other folks one day if I'm not a bird song expert, so I don't know the difference. I don't know which birds learn their songs by hearing them or if it's innate, but dick sissels have some variations on their song, and we were talking about, because some of them don't sound like dick sissel. And so we were talking about whether that's learned or, these are the mysteries of birds that we have yet to discover. Like maybe there's certain populations that have they learn this song from each other. And so if you can identify, if you hear one of their songs, maybe it's because they came from a certain geography, and you hear a different one, maybe because they're from a different geography. Those are the kinds of things that we don't really know about these birds. I mean, people always think that I have a very specific idea of where a dick sissel in Wisconsin lives most of its life. I have no idea. I mean, we don't know where those birds came from really. I mean, if it's most likely that their first landing spot was not Wisconsin for the year, for their, in the breeding season, that they landed somewhere else and then moved. And, where they actually go in the wintertime. South America is, surprise, a big geography, but we know which countries they go to. And actually in South America, the dick sissels are big agricultural pests. So they are poisoned and shot in South America. So, along with some other species that that are an agricultural pest. So if the protections for birds in general across the world are very different than what we have here in the United States. But anyway, keep going now that you want to keep going down the bird rabbit hole.
No, that was great. I learned a lot about the dick thistle right there. I forgot my third point. I was distracted by the dick thistle. Yeah. Oh, Britta, I know what I was going to ask you. Britta, do you hunt at all?
You bet. Yep.
What do you hunt?
Deer. I'm an archery and gun hunter, and waterfowl hunter, and upland birds, turkeys and pheasants and grouse.
Nice. Do you have a dog?
Yeah. I don't have a dog. I will get one at some point, but just hasn't been quite right yet. So
that's fair. Do you grouse hunt without a dog?
Most of the time grouse hunting, I guess I'm at my folks' place up in northwestern Wisconsin. So our family dog that I still kind of consider mine partially. So Millie comes with on those hunts. So
Millie flushes a grouse.
She's kind of a dummy, but she can do it. So I think it surprises her just as much as it does me. But kind of just bombs around. But we'll say that she's flushing them. So
I like it. So I guess with all of the craziness of the last year and a half, and you mentioned being part of R3 and that being a motivator for this habitat hike series, I guess what are your thoughts on R3? Like what are you looking to accomplish with this?
I think that I guess a couple of things. I feel very fortunate that I grew up and have the knowledge with hunting. But I recognize that there's a lot of folks out there, and especially women, that are looking to get into it but don't know how. And so that's kind of where I am coming from, is that I feel like I have the knowledge, so I want to share it. I also have a good friend of mine that inspires me all the time, because she was roommates with me in college, and she just decided that she wanted to learn how to hunt. And so now her and her husband have just gone, just learned it all and figured it out. And so they attended a couple of different events over the years, and some of those, really helped a lot, they said. And so just being able to hear that experience from a good friend of mine, and know that those types of things do help. I just want to continue those on, and again, like I said too before, with just our events, again, women learning from other women. And so being comfortable, especially that you're like, say if you're not familiar with guns, then maybe that can be pretty intimidating if you're getting taught by a big burly guy, trying to learn for your first time. But maybe you would be more comfortable if it's another woman. And so that's where I'm kind of trying to want to make that space where everybody feels they can learn and continue on with the hunting tradition.
I like it.
That awesome. Was kind of a rambling answer, so sorry about that. But
that was awesome. It
makes a lot of sense. As a young man growing up, I learned about most things from other men through ridicule and shame. So it's much better. I know that my fiance would not respond real well to ridicule and shame as a teaching method. So I'm sure it is much better to have women teaching women.
I will second that, Trevor.
I think Britta and I, for the most part, learned from men. Right, Britta? I mean, you mostly had men in your family that were hunting that you learned from, and I would say the same. And I would say there was some level of ridicule, I think, that we sustained.
But probably deserved. So it's it's totally fine.
Britta's all into that tough love. I think we had pretty similar experiences, though. We had male mentors that were super welcoming and never made us feel any different about being out there. I mean, we grew up in, I think, pretty safe spaces. And don't let me tell your story, Britta, but I've talked about this on the podcast last year. I didn't really start realizing some of the biases and hurdles until I was older, because I grew up with male mentors that were really welcoming and never made me feel any different. So I'd say we're on the same page and wanting to give back in a way that provides that space to folks that haven't had the same experience we did growing up. They haven't had a safer, welcoming environment, and now that we recognize it, we want to be able to contribute in some other way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Kelly. Yep.
What else we got, Bill? I think we covered the events. We covered Pheasants Forever in general. We covered the crucial work that Britta and her team are doing. And I'll say too, the Farm Bill Biologist team is pretty diverse from an R3 standpoint. They've got the women that are participating in these events have a variety of experiences in the hunting realm and in outdoor recreation. And so I think that, again, Britta says she has a great team, and she does. It's recognized by people outside her organization. So definitely come to these events. There's so much to learn. I've watched the PF biologists do things like this, and I, as a person who works in conservation, constantly learn from them. So come hang out, especially if you're interested in doing habitat work on property that you recreate on, or if you happen to own property, or even if you're interested in knowing more about what the native communities and plants are around you when you're recreating on public land. Here's a great opportunity to learn from some of the best about what you're seeing and become a knowledgeable sports person and talk to some really cool people. So yeah, I think we've hit all your high points, Bill.
We nailed it, crushed it. So one thing I want to ask Trevor about, and then the two of you can definitely chime in. Trevor, what's the Newhunterorg thing I saw you post about today? Explain, because R3, like typically Wisconsin BHA works with the DNR for R3, like learn to hunt, blah 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 blah. That's all been canceled again for this year. So it's left a lot of people that loved helping with that, were interested, kind of not knowing what to do when it comes to helping other people in hunting, fishing, that kind of thing. So I was curious what's involved in that, Trevor, and then obviously Britta and Kelly can give their thoughts and ideas as people that work in the outdoor space.
Yeah, so that Newhunter.org is something that came out of the Steve Ranella media machine that's out there now for Meat Eater. It's a couple of guys in Kansas who themselves were trying to get started in hunting and saw the problem that everybody sees, that it's difficult to make connections. So they only launched the website, it may have been last week, so it's pretty new. But yeah, they just put out a call to see if anybody would be interested in mentoring, which I did respond to. So I did a phone interview with them as to my ideals of like an ideal hunt and what I would want to teach people if I had the opportunity to have a mentor. And they put my bio up, so I guess I made the cut. Originally, the website was supposed to be you had to pay for a subscription, but they decided that wasn't really in line with their ethos to begin with, to have to pay for access like that. So it's 100% free. You just have to go to newhunter.org and create an account, and you can see all the mentors nationwide, not just in Wisconsin, but nationwide. So yeah, it's a really cool thing. I think it's early on. Their marketing looks like it will be on point, and they've spoken about training for mentors like myself as we get a little closer to hunting season, about actually teaching someone if you've not had the opportunity to do it in the past. But yeah, they seem like two guys who are real excited about it. They have a lot on their hands. This is they're trying to do a nationwide effort out the gate, so that I imagine that's pretty hard. But yeah, they said the Midwest and Wisconsin especially had one of their best responses in terms of people being interested in mentoring, which I think says good things about the Wisconsinite ethos in general.
Cool. Yeah, I was curious, and I know Kelly and I have talked about hunting mentorship breaking down those barriers, because there are some learn to hunt programs out there that are, Wisconsin, we've got some tiered where there's, it could be $100 or more, maybe a little less. And then there's some programs that, are well over $1,000 to learn to hunt. So that can be a huge barrier to people. Already there's all the things you don't know, the fear, and then you tag on you add on a price tag that might be unapproachable for some people. So yeah, I was curious what that was all about.
Yeah, hunting is like one of the greatest equalizers. To turn it into a pay to play like class struggle thing that's pretty crappy. I'm sorry, I didn't know that there were things out there where you had to pay $1,000. That's ridiculous. It's a big enough lift to get into it gear wise to start with, let alone having to pay $1,000 just to talk to somebody. That's too bad. Well, I'm glad this thing is free. Hopefully people actually do contact me. Maybe I can work for tips if people are getting $1,000 for it. I can tip your bartenders.
Yeah, Trevor, just start charging $1,000. No.
Yeah, I'll give you
access to you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally worth it. I'll give you a good deal though.
I haven't heard of this website, so I will check it out. I'm not on the socials really, so I didn't see your post, Trevor. Not because I don't like you, because I'm not on the socials. I'm not on the socials. We're not related in any way on the socials. So
that's okay. I'll when things happen, I'll just start driving over there to tell you.
Oh yes, that sounds good.
Very close, and there's no construction anymore. So
I do. If you're asking, yeah, right. I do think I like the concept, Bill. I mean, the more ways we can invite people to connect with others that to do the things that we love doing, the better. I'm also glad that they decided to make it free, and that we've talked about that a ton, pay to play, and how, there are costs to these things. So then who fronts the cost? Who does the cost burden goes to? And I think you and I have talked about how we really don't want to see the cost burden going to the new hunter. And if there's some other way that organizations, donors can step up and say, use this for your R3 efforts so that you don't have to put any of that cost on the new hunter, would be, according to our ethos at least. So, yeah, I'm glad they decided to go that way. I guess not knowing anything about who they're working for or anything like that. But I mean, and this is things like this, networks like this have been talked about in so many circles. PF has been talking about this, I'm sure. BHA talks about this. Everybody talks about like these mentoring network circles. How do you find a mentor? How do you access them? So I hope that people don't necessarily get overwhelmed by it if there's suddenly this burgeoning amount of options to find people. I don't think that there is, but at some point maybe there would be, and then that could be a little bit overwhelming. But there's more that we could do locally, boots on the ground, groups like BHA, groups like Artemis. We're supposed to be doing these things, so I don't know. I should ask Marcia about it, I guess. See if Artemis has any role.
Boom. Britta, are you taking anyone else out hunting this year? Are you mentoring anyone?
I think actually my friend that I was talking about earlier, she's not pheasant hunted before. So I think December we're gonna do a Northwest Wisconsin hunt. So we'll get that in currently. That's what I got planned. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. That's chasing roosters is exciting.
And she gets to chase roosters, Bill, that are not planted.
Right.
So they've got the real deal up there.
If you need a dog up there, I'm just saying, I've got one. I can bring him. Kelly.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't say it out loud, but Northwest Wisconsin has got a pretty good wild pheasant population, so it's a lot of fun in December, especially up there.
There you go. And if you need references, Kelly can reference my dog. She'll speak for him.
He put up quite a few birds for me. It was just a matter of Kelly connecting or not, paying attention.
Yeah, there's a lot of that inattentiveness, but we've got just a quick announcement before we let everyone go. We've got the Pint Night next Tuesday. at Great Dane Brewery up in Wausau, Wisconsin. We've got Ken Blomberg. He's going to be there speaking, talking about his books, sharing some stories from public lands in Wisconsin. He's been around a while, so he's got some good stories. Then we've got the Castle Rock Flowage River Cleanup, Saturday, the 17th. We've got quite a few people lined up with boats and trailers and all kinds of goodies to get a bunch of old duck blinds cleared up off of public land, which will be a good time, and then probably grab some beers afterwards. And then I've got up here for people watching, if you're watching this, the Rendezvous Flyer Up, Saturday, July 31st. That's over at the Racine Instinctive Bowman Club in Racine, Wisconsin. So some events for people coming up here. Hopefully see you at one or more of them. And just like this podcast, getting the word out for conservation, public lands, and user groups here in Wisconsin. So Britta, thanks for joining us. Trevor.
You bet. But
oh yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say if I could just do a little shameless plug for anybody out there that's wanting to come on a hike. We're next week, July 11th, and then July 13th. So if you're a lady, come join us. Or if you are a gentleman listening and have ladies in your life that might be interested, share the knowledge and come join us.
Bam. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody.